Hello and welcome to our program. We have on our show today the Central Vigilance Commissioner, Shri K. Chowdary. Vigilance Awareness Week is being celebrated from today till the 31st, which is also Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's birthday, and that's the reason for the special structuring of this Awareness Week. So let us learn more about this and what else does the Vigilance Commission do. So welcome to our program.
Thank you.
The Central Vigilance Commission, what is the mandate of this, sir?
The Central Vigilance Commission was constituted by an Act of Parliament called Central Vigilance Commission Act 2003, and the main purpose is to inquire into the allegations or cause inquiries to be conducted into allegations relating to corruption and other offences under the Prevention of Corruption Act in respect of officers of the central government and other officers of the public sector undertakings and other notified persons.
There is this Vigilance Awareness Week which the Commission celebrates every year. What's the purpose of this?
Mainly, as you see the title, it is to bring awareness among people. A number of people in the country, they think Central Vigilance Commission is in charge of all the vigilance related activities. Whether the vigilance relates to the misconducts committed by government servants, state government servants, central government servants, public sector undertakings, or in private life. That's one thing. Second thing is, we would like to bring awareness in people that there exists a commission which looks into their grievances, which takes note of the fact of the existence of corruption or misconduct, and then give them idea as to how to approach the commission and how to prevent such misconducts.
So grievance redressal is a very tricky area for the simple reason that somebody who has a grievance obviously feels he or she has a just cause to come. But very often on the investigation of facts, different things are thrown up and there are different sensitivities involved, and one of them could also be a vested interest in how a grievance is lodged. So how does the Vigilance Commission look at all this?
As I said, the Central Vigilance Commission inquires itself into or get inquiries caused in respect of corruption and misconducts which are punishable either under the Prevention of Corruption Act or under the departmental proceedings.
Okay.
Now, these could be coming into the notice of the Central Vigilance Commission in many ways. One, the Commission can take suo motu notice of a misconduct or a crime, or the government can make a reference to us, or a public can make a complaint. It could be anonymous or pseudonymous, but nowadays anonymous and pseudonymous we are not acting upon unless the commission itself treats them as a suo motu inquiry.
Okay.
We have also a procedure called whistleblower protection mechanism, under which any whistleblower can bring to the notice of the commission the misconducts committed in any sphere of life,
okay,
particularly relating to the government offices and the government undertakings, where if a corruption or a corrupt act has happened, it can be brought to our notice and we keep their identity secret. We get the matter investigated and punish the guilty government servants. I would like to clarify here that there are two things. If a misconduct has happened, or let's say a road is being built and it has not been built according to the specifications, the fact that there has been a compromise in the matter of the building of the road by itself may or may not fall within a scope of a corruption.
Okay.
We have what is called a chief technical examiner who looks into this kind of a things and sees whether the government contracts have been executed according to the terms. And if on examination it has not been done properly, we could suggest that out of the tender amount, some amount be recovered from the contractor. We also examine whether the person who supervised or who failed to supervise that work, whether he committed any misconduct, and in which case he needs to be punished. Several times it is not a direct acceptance of a bribe. Okay. Many a time what happens is a public functionary is entrusted with a responsibility to do an act or to keep a watch, but he fails to do so, and that results in a huge loss to the government or inconvenience to the public. Now, at times these are deliberate ones. At times these could be just oversight or sheer workload which does not permit them to attend. So, the responsibility of the commission and the vigilance officers is very great, that we should not be running after people who committed bona fide mistakes or who were mildly negligent or who did not know at all that there was such a misconduct. Whereas, it is for us to discern and see the motivated acts are punished promptly and adequately.
Ethics, morality, values, these are also not only very individual, but there is also a general way of saying this is moral behavior, this is ethical behavior, and a lot of personal and professional boundaries tend to melt when such inquiries are taken up. So, in terms of how one sees professional conduct, how does the Commission manage to say that some are grey areas, but we need to make black and white, and you need to send benchmarks and boundary lines, and then not only that, get people to agree with them irrespective of their personal feelings? How do you do that?
See, most of the officers and the employees of the government, they are governed by what is known as conduct rules. It could be a slight modification when it comes to the public sector undertakings, but by and large they have a set of norms. Any deviation from such guidelines is certainly a misconduct. Similarly, while a person performs his official duties, majority of the organizations have a standard operation procedure. They have a list of do's and don'ts,
Right.
and how it is to be done, how it should not be done. So, when a person violates those processes, then there is a reasonable suspicion that he has done it deliberately. So, one has to look into the facts and circumstances of the case to see whether there is any motive behind it, or even if there is no motive, is he habituated to doing such kind of a things that he is causing loss to the revenue.
So, you see the history also.
We see the history also.
Okay.
Public generally feel that corruption means only taking money. Somebody took money to do a thing or refrain from doing a thing. So, they think so and so is corrupt. But in my view, that is not the beginning and end of the matter, and that is what the Commission also thinks. There is a process called an integrity process. If a particular thing is required to be done in a particular way under the existing guidelines, and that is not done in that way, but in a different way, then the process has been compromised.
Right.
This is very important to know, because in the recent past, we have seen some what are now termed as scams. In these scams, probably the investigations are still on, the trials before the various courts are on. So, it would be prejudging the issue to say that who gave how much money to whom. But by and large, most people who are aware of the things agree that the processes have been compromised.
And that's a breach.
That's a breach.
Okay.
And you see, when you compromise with the process, and you may not have taken a money from X, but the compromising of the process has helped X to get the contract vis-a-vis Y, who would have otherwise got the contract.
True.
So, that makes it a corrupt practice.
That means when processes are put into place, they are put into place with the deliberate thought of trying to cut out possible areas for suggested corruption.
Yes.
And they need to be respected.
Exactly. I will also take this matter a little forward.
Sir.
This is why we are taking up this present scheme of vigilance awareness. The current theme of our vigilance awareness for the current year is preventive vigilance as a tool for good governance. That is, instead of getting into an act after a misconduct has happened, something bad has already happened, a corrupt practice has happened, you get into the picture, try to find out who has been responsible and try to fix him. What we are saying is, look at your processes, redefine your processes, fix responsibilities so that people don't misconduct themselves, and public are not inconvenienced. So, the preventive vigilance, the theme is that A, we look at our existing processes and see how do we streamline them. B, remove the bottlenecks and then reduce the areas of discretion, reduce the areas of public contact, so that people find it easier to get their work done. And there is no discretion. Whether it is K.V. Chowdary who is doing the work, somebody else who is doing the work, the end result should be the same. If all this doesn't happen and in spite of it somebody has done something wrong, then you punish him quickly. Presently our procedures are so long,
Right.
and because of probably the overload or whatever it is, we are also trying to work out a scheme or a process by which we identify the major misconducts and take them in a fast forward manner.
Right.
See, now what happens is, whether it is a misconduct involving a minor issue or a major issue, it looks as if we are treating them in the same par. So that is also not giving the desired effect. And on the other hand, it is giving a wrong impression that the people who are placed at the lower level of the pyramid in the governmental hierarchy, or the people who have committed minor misconducts which are easy to verify, they are getting punished, and the people who are involved at the higher level of the pyramid and people who take complicated decisions but which have wide ranging consequences, they are getting away from these.
Are you also thinking of making small teams who would not go from a vigilance angle but would go from a support angle to go and help organizations go through their processes? Because what the vigilance team can pick up a possible prospective breach, somebody who's following the process day in and day out may not be able to pick it up. So is some work there?
We have not created exclusive groups for that,
Okay.
but we have requested our existing vigilance officers to have a relook at the processes,
Okay.
relook at the existing processes, and then see where the bottlenecks are, where the maximum number of complaints or scopes for corruption exist, and then try to streamline them. Where there is a need to put what we call standard operating procedures. In many cases, what happens is, in a situation as a government servant, I take a call which is according to me the best option, but there is no code which says that in this kind of a situation act like this. So these are called what is called a standard operating procedure.
Right.
To the extent of regular situations where people come across issues, if we could lay down the processes that these should be the minimum steps which you should do, then things can get better.
There are different attitudes about chalta hai, corruption to hai hi, who's going to fight the system, and you have some very wonderful views on that. But right now we'll go in for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about all this. Right now, a short break. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with the Central Vigilance Commissioner, Shri K.V. Chowdary. So when we talk of punishment or punitive measures, and normally all vigilance commissions and vigilance officers are linked somewhere to punishment, and you're trying to bring a change in saying you need to be inspired not to invite punishment. This attitudinal shift, one is within the organization of the Vigilance Commission, and one is the other stakeholders who are affected by this commission. How do you bring a change in attitude?
For this, we need to get into the meaning of what is vigilance. Vigilance actually means being aware of or being vigilant. That is, you be careful about things, you keep noticing them and be aware of what is happening or what could happen if you do or you don't do a thing. From that, vigilance, unfortunately or fortunately, over a period of time has become a misunderstood word. Vigilance means that you go and punish somebody, or vigilance means you run after somebody, whether he is worthy of being run after or not. So this fear has to be taken out first among the public itself and from the officers itself.
Right.
Now, for doing that, we need to keep them informed that following the right processes without looking at the end result of a particular issue is what the government officer should be doing. If I follow all the right processes and X gets a contract or Y doesn't get a contract, I am not responsible for it. Or when you are dealing with a file, how you deal with it. as long as he is performing these functions according to a laid down procedure, he should be safe. Like for example, in the tendering process, we have required most of the agencies to enter into what is called an integrity pact. That is, people who are tendering for a contract where they are required to sign an integrity pact saying that they will follow ethical practices in quoting for the tender.
Okay.
And we have also, through the Central Vigilance Commission and with the Association of Transparency International, brought in the concept of independent external monitors. That is, there is a third party who is not employed by the commission or employed by the tendering agency. He is appointed as something like an umpire. He is not part of the tender, but he is there just watching right from the framing of the tender till the work is executed. So, if any of the participants in the tender have a grievance or a dispute or a clarification needed, they can approach this man who is an independent agent and he can clarify to them. So, this is one preventive mechanism, because earlier what used to happen is that something used to happen and people will rush to the court and get the whole thing stayed or get it quashed or something like that.
Right.
But now there is a kind of a vent. Similarly, our preventive vigilance officers also look at the systems and then see that before the matter gets very bad, we retrieve the systems. That's how we are trying to do that. And then the most important thing is we are trying to bring a lot of awareness in people, not only in the public but among students, the younger generation. This year, for example, as part of our Vigilance Awareness Week, we have identified 100 cities and towns across the country wherein we carry out this exercise of vigilance awareness, particularly among students who are likely to come into the workforce in the next 1 year or 2 years, that is the final years or the penultimate year, and the 11th and 12th class children, and conduct the sessions on either debates, oratory, seminars or lectures, and we make them aware what is vigilance, what is good practices, what is ethical practice, so that they are, seeds of good behavior, good ethics, good governance are seeded in them.
Right. So, when a government officer makes a notation on a file or takes a decision, we know that a lot of things are now in the purview of right to information. There is greater transparency, the public can know what is happening. But there is also a feeling in government circles that somewhere this is also affecting decision making in many officers, because they are scared to put down notations because anybody can question them. What are your views on this?
In the lighter vein, people keep talking about 3 C's, CBI, the CAG and the CVC. Jokes apart, every government servant is required to perform his functions in a rational, responsible manner, and whatever decision he takes, he is supposed to reduce it to writing and give the reasons therefore.
Right.
If the reasons there are recorded, then whether a person asks for it under RTI, he doesn't ask for it under RTI but straight away challenges and the court calls for the records and looks into it, the file speaks for itself. So, it is in the interest of the officers that they record detailed reasons as to why they take a particular action, whether in favor or against. Then the RTI is only, it's a transparency mechanism.
Right.
Public should know why this decision is taken.
So, at a personal level, professionally you deal with a lot of people doing things which are black, white and grey, as we spoke about earlier. But at a personal level, there has to be a certain deep level of centering. How do you maintain objectivity? How do you get the personal and the professional balance? How do you give the benefit of the doubt and know when not to give the benefit? What do you do to keep yourself in an equanimous position?
I have joined service in 78, and in 1979 onwards I have been working in the field. My earliest commissioner, one Shri M.S. Narayanan, a stalwart who later retired as chairman of the CBDT.
Right.
He told me one day while there was a discussion, very early part of my life, he said, "Chowdary, if you are deciding on a file, never read the name of the file. What difference does it make to you? The file relates to Mrs. Gaura or somebody else.
Right.
So, you just read the files and take a decision." Number 2, when the decision is critical and there is something like 55-45 or 50-50, then what I learned to do over a period of time is to draft your order in one way, in a detailed fashion, without the names, without the any identification aspects. Let one of your colleagues or even your own subordinate read it, and then you only ask him whether it is correct or not. Does it sound right, or is there something wrong with this order? Is 2 plus 2 here looking like 5? Is it so awkward? If he says yes, provided you have such kind of a people,
Right.
I do have and I did have right through my service.
That's because you probably inspired them to be like
Yes,
that.
yes.
Right.
And invariably, I have learned through my service that it is always necessary to leave a very detailed note regarding a decision you took, because the file will explain for itself. 10 years later, I am not in the department. My decision is going to be questioned in a High Court or a Supreme Court. I can't stand next to the counsel or next to the honorable judge and explain, sir, this is what I meant. The file should say that this is what Chowdary means, and this is what he understood, and this is what he decided. So these are few of the things which the thing. And another very important thing which we should know is that the file is not a file. There is a person behind it. The fact that there is a human element involved is what is important.
So Vigilance Awareness Week, very, very critical, and I think we've got a lot of inputs from you into understanding what really does vigilance mean. I think we need to not only safeguard our decisions but also understand the intent, the detailing, and how can one actually go forward and say, I'm vigilant, I want to see how can my decisions be questioned, my decisions not be questioned, or am I really following the right processes? Thank you so much for coming on to our show.
Thank you.